Join me today to another grammar lesson that will put an end to your confusion between the present perfect progressive, the past perfect, and the past perfect progressive. Hi, I'm Sharon. Welcome back once more to Look and Listen English Lessons. I have broken this lesson into 3 sections to help you memorize the rules. And as always, I will leave the material in the description box below the video. But before we're going to start, give us a thumb up and make sure to subscribe to Look and Listen English Lessons, because you might be tired afterwards after all this grammar. Okay, also a giant thanks to my talented editor Ali, who makes my video look so lovely. So Ali, thank you so much. All right, are you ready? I'm excited. Let's get started. Okay, so we are going to start with the past perfect tense. What is it and when do we use it? We use the past perfect tense to express an action that began and ended before another action occurred in the past. The sentence in the past perfect tense has 2 parts. The first part indicates an action that occurred earlier, and the second part points out an action that took place after that but still happened in the past. For example, I had called you before I left the house. Had called, past perfect. Left the house, past simple. The verb that occurred earlier will be in the past perfect tense. The next following verb will come in past simple. The typical time expressions we use for the past perfect tense are when, after, before, by the time, as soon as. Pay attention to the structure used by the time expressions. By the time we arrived, they had left. By the time we arrived, they had left. We arrived will come in past simple, had left will come in past perfect. In a positive sentence, we use had plus verb 3. For example, I had eaten breakfast before he came to pick me up. I had eaten, past perfect, came to pick me up, past simple. In a negative sentence, we use hadn't plus verb 3. For example, I hadn't finished all my homework when my friend Steven arrived. I hadn't finished all my homework when my friend Steven arrived. In a yes-no questions, we use had plus subject plus verb 3. For example, had you listened to this record before he brought you as a present? Had you listened to this record before he brought you as a present? In WH questions, we use WH word plus had plus subject plus verb 3. For example, where had he lived before he came to England? Where had he lived before he came to England? In WH subject questions, we use WH or who plus had plus verb 3. For example, what had happened by the time the police officer arrived? What had happened by the time the police officer arrived? For tags questions, both negative and positive forms, we use hadn't plus pronouns. For example, in the negative form, you hadn't seen the movie before you read the book, had you? And in the positive form, they had painted the flat, hadn't they? Okay, so let's move on to the past perfect progressive tense. It's also known as the past perfect continuous tense. And it shows that an action that started in the past continued up until another time in the past. while in the present perfect progressive is used to show that an action that started in the past and has continued up to the present moment. The present perfect continuous usually emphasizes duration or the amount of time that an action has been taking place. Okay, now let's move on in the past perfect progressive. In the past perfect progressive, we use had plus been plus verb plus ing. For example, she had been talking on the phone for hours when she was cut off. She had been talking on the phone for hours when she was cut off. For present perfect progressive, we use have or has plus been plus verb plus ing. For example, I have been studying English since 8 o'clock. I have been studying English since 8 o'clock. The typical time expressions we use for the past perfect progressive tense are the same as for the present perfect progressive. For example, for, since, all day, all afternoon, for hours, for 6 years, during. For yes/no questions, we use had plus subject plus been plus verb plus ing, and don't forget a question mark. Had you been sleeping when I called you? Had you been sleeping when I called you? Okay, for WH questions, we use WH word, of course, plus had, plus subject, plus been, verb, and ing. And don't forget again, question mark. For example, what had she been looking for before she found this awful job? What had she been looking for before she had found this awful job? Right. Any questions? Okay, perfect. Class dismissed. And don't forget to practice a little bit every single day.